welcome to everyone. This is the third webinar that we've done in this series called Hospitality and the Coronavirus. We started this at the end of March when the industry was turned upside down by travel bans and the coronavirus. And thankfully, we have moved on to the stage where we're watching the industry reopen in a series of waves, depending on the region and the laws within the regions. But we're watching an entire industry all of a sudden reopen, but under very different circumstances. So the theme for today is contact-free experiences. And it must be top of mind for everyone because we've had hundreds of people register for this, and I can see 200 people and climbing in this live event, which is very exciting. Thank you for taking the time to do this. And there are several hundred more people who have registered for the recorded event. So most of you, we can see from the registrations, are working in the hotel sector. So this is, clearly the topic of the day. And we're so delighted to have 6 amazing speakers with us, and I will introduce them in just a moment. I think it's worth noting that in May of this year, the New York Times, which May of this year was 2 weeks ago, the New York Times wrote that the contactless hotel stay may be considered the new luxury. And what's remarkable about this is that if 6 months ago a luxury property was advertising themselves as contactless or contact-free, you would think something had gone horribly wrong in their marketing. But actually, this may be the new standard, and we actually think it might be the new normal. Some of the things that we're going to discuss today in terms of, check-in experience and the stay at a property and how you handle certain services and all of the things that have been considered the norm within the industry are being rewritten as we speak, and they may be a permanent thing to come in the industry. It might be that we're in the process of looking at not just adapting for a coronavirus, but adapting for a new set of customer expectations. So this is, I am Leah Anathan, I'm the CMO at Muse, and the other moderator in this event today is Matt Wells, the CEO of Muse and founder, and many of you know Matt for being one of the real innovators in the world of property management systems. And if we go to the agenda, let's just go through what we're going to cover today. We're in the introduction. Matt is going to really set the scene in a moment as to what we mean by contact-free. Because this is really being defined right now. And so we'll just look at what the topics are that are within this area of contact-free. And then he's going to lead a panel discussion with 3 hoteliers who all have different types of properties and some really interesting experiences to share. And we're so happy to have their perspectives on this as hoteliers. And then I'm going to pick this up to have a panel discussion with 3 experts in hotel technology. And again, we'll be looking at the tech that enables contact-free. And then we're going to turn this event to all of you and have an interactive Q&A on Slido, and I'll explain how Slido works. And then Matt will wrap this up very briefly. So I think it's going to be a really nice 90 minutes together, and we're going to try to maximize the time for all of you. Slido. It's very simple, and if you've never used it before, it's really terrific for when you've got several hundred people in an event. If you go to slido.com and you enter in the event code OneHospitality, you can not only ask your own questions, but if you see other questions that you really like and want answered, you can upvote them. So that what that means is we'll work from the most popular questions and come straight through. And it allows us to make sure that we address the topics that are most pressing for all of you. And so let me go ahead and welcome our speakers. And we have 6 really fantastic speakers. Let me start with Alex Heisberg, who is the head of technology at the citizenM Hotels. TJ Person, who is the CEO of OpenKey. Alexander Shashu, who is the founder and president of Alice. Michael Zetterland, who is the chief product officer at Ariane. Robert Smith, who is the vice president from AutoCamp, and Mark Strook, who is the commercial director for the Postillion Hotels in the Netherlands. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you, Matt.
Thank you. So a contact-free experience, and like it's funny how we built a number of solutions at Muse previously, and when we talked to hotels about an online check-in, the first response has always been, but we are a service industry, we want to communicate and we want to touch and be close to customers. But suddenly, like Leah said, that whole perception has gone out the window, and right now we need to rethink what an entire customer journey from the booking experience to them actually checking in and checking out, and then the post-departure follow-through look like. So I'm going to talk you through these in 4 individual slides, talking about pre-arrival, arrival, stay experience, and then the departure. There's a lot to cover. I've got 10 minutes. I talk fast, but what's nice is this is recorded and you can slow it down once you get it in your inbox, because I don't want to slow down because I want to share as much as I can. So when we look at pre-arrival, meaning getting customers to book, what's really critical at this point is that your source markets have changed. So what we see in Europe is that some countries open up to neighboring countries, but they don't open up to all countries at this point. So that means that if, I'm based in Prague myself. So if I was running a hotel in Prague, my core source markets used to be France and the UK and Russia and the US. Those 4 source markets are no longer a source market to us. Suddenly, Austria, Germany, Slovakia are core source markets for the new travel. So what I need to do is go back to my website and make sure that it talks to those customers in a different way. And probably most of the customers initially will be leisure travelers, because most businesses don't allow too much travel at the moment. So you need to really think about what's the messaging that you want to put out there. Is my website translated? These are customers that probably know the attractions in your city because they're much close to the destination. They're coming in by car. Do you have parking? And you need to communicate that on the website because that's something that they'll be looking for. And then I think over communicate is probably the message right now. There's definite stages to how hotels open up. And I think the first 2 months of opening up, it means you need to communicate and don't assume that they understand how it's going to work. There's a fear about travel because you're traveling to an unknown destination, and they wonder, like, what do I do when I walk through the hotel? Is my room going to be cleaned? Was there a person in my room yesterday? So is there a heightened risk of infection? And I think at this stage, the best thing you can do is communicate too much rather than too little. Whereas previously we were always worried about oversaturation. I think you can't communicate enough at this point, but that at some point you need to pull back as well, because once people get used to travel again, you need to pull that back to the new normal. If you have an online check-in, you want to stimulate people to check in online. We've had an online check-in for several years built into our PMS. And we've seen adoption between 15 to 20% of customers checking themselves in. But today you want as many customers as possible. So how are you communicating the online check-in? Maybe tweak that message to really stand out in your emails so that they don't get distracted by other marketing messages in there. And on the payment side, make sure that you work with an e-commerce integrated platform, that you capture all these payments, because payments is one of those touch points where a human in hotel often needs to have contact with a human. But a lot of that can be completely automated online if you have a good payment solution integrated. On the arrival side, so meaning the day of arrival, what does that look like? And again, you may want to send an email just on the day of arrival, re-explaining what that procedure looks like. If they've checked in online, well, how do I get my key? So we have a great partner on the call today, OpenKey, where they're a mobile key solution. So they will send a notification to the customer with instructions on how to access their room. And that already creates a complete kind of social distancing solution where they don't even have to go and pick up a key. But today I talked to a hotelier who has physical keys. So even if you have the greatest kiosk solution, and we have Ariane joining today to talk about their kiosk solutions as well, even if you have the greatest kiosk solution, if you don't have mobile, like even RFID key solutions, you need to figure out a way to pass on those keys in the best way possible to a customer if you want to have a contact-free customer experience. Temperature checks, like obviously once people come into the hotel, it's not a safe solution, but it definitely sets the tone for that you're taking it seriously, and that you've got protocols in place. And if that's the first thing, people feel a lot more calmed down when the temperature check has been taken at the entry of the hotel. And also these hygiene regulations, I'm sure you're doing a lot, but make sure you communicate what you're doing, because customers will want to talk about this after stay, because this is important for other customers that they're inviting through reviews to come back to the hotel. Room access, obviously with mobile key, that's preferred, but that's expensive solution. So you need to think about how does this work. Messaging is great right now. So we have a bunch of integrations that integrate with SMS services or maybe even Facebook Messenger. You need to choose your target group, who are your guests, and what's the best way to communicate with them. If that's an older generation, they may not have Facebook Messenger, but if that's the younger generation, they have different tools. So really look at your demographic, and integrating a messaging service is pretty easy nowadays to allow you to message very quickly and safely. And then have your staff protocols. So we tend to forget, and I see this in Czech Republic where things have opened up already. We tend to forget very quickly that there is a pandemic out there and there is risk. So reiterate to your staff, maybe even have a safety person assigned whose full-time job it is to remind people what the standards are and communicate it to your staff, because you don't want to drop the ball on that. Then once they've checked in and throughout the experience, obviously in the rooms, you want to make sure that you communicate what the hygiene standards are. How often are we cleaning? Could I skip cleaning so I don't have a housekeeper to come into my room throughout my stay, which is increasing the risk? What does food and beverage look like? Like, can I go to the bar? And I think you want to clearly communicate, yes, the bar is open. These are the social distancing rules that we have. But the big question is, how are you dealing with breakfast? And most hotels have buffets. And I think a buffet is the absolute no-no today, because that's where people start to queue and there's a lot of crossover with other people. So what does the new breakfast experience look like? And I remember very vividly a few years ago at the Hoxton in London, where they had teamed up with Pret a Manger. And every morning I found a brown bag on my door that had the basics for breakfast in there. But I enjoyed it and it was different. But for some hotels that works, and other hotels, they may want to have an overflow. So if they use the conference space, which you're not going to sell, as an overflow breakfast space that you can space out tables a lot more, you can actually make breakfast in a restaurant kind of environment work. Always think about common spaces and social distancing and the working lines. If you're thinking about housekeeping, they're walking around these corridors, and how do you prevent overlap with customers? So if you have great housekeeping apps like the Muse app, but we also have Alice on the call today, you get live information about, is the customer in the room right now, yes or no? So do I knock on that door, or do I wait and go to the other room right now to prevent crossover traffic in the corridors? Messaging we talked about, and throughout the stay, you want to make it easy to message the reception in a modern way, rather than getting a customer to come to a reception desk. Reiterate your protocols and safety throughout, having this safety person walk through the lobby, remind people what's going on, over communicate in writing and written, but also maybe in emails, and think about creative solutions. So if hotels, we often have a lack of space. So the gym is a very small space. So if you can only accommodate 1 or 2 customers in that space based on social distancing, well, could you put that treadmill into a meeting room, and could you put the cross trainer in a different meeting room, so that you actually space out your gym equipment across multiple spaces, for example? Or work with a biking company, because most of the customers coming to your destination probably know your destination because they're coming by car. And they want to experience different things rather than seeing the major sites. They may want to go to a zoo in the city. So you may want to get that, like, tickets ready, or have a partnership with the zoo, or figure out other ways to entertain these customers in the destination. And then on the last side, the departure, that's obviously the checkout is a big form of traffic. Usually checkout times, meaning 10, 11 o'clock, you see queues happening when people start to build up. and you want to avoid that. So we've got a built-in online checkout. So that's emails to customers where you can, update your bill and address and pay online. But a lot of hotels don't have this. So you need to think about what's that experience. If you've taken payment beforehand, could you figure out an express checkout format where you put the bill under the door so they don't have to come to the reception? You should really think about, how do I prevent customers from coming to the reception? How do they return the keys? Maybe put a nice key box there rather than having to drop it off at the reception, and make it really visual. Payments, try and take payments either before the stay or throughout the stay. As you have credit cards with pre-authorizations, you should take those payments rather than waiting for them to come to the reception. A lot of the time you are able to take the payments, and communicate to the customer afterwards, because suddenly hotels start from a base zero. We've all got like 10% occupancy running, but you want to start collecting reviews about what new customers who have stayed post-COVID are saying about your hotel and the cleanliness standards and how you've tackled this challenge, because travelers are looking for these reviews. So you need to have a marketing strategy to get customers to leave reviews, to ensure that you start building up these new reviews post-COVID, for driving traffic into your website for direct bookings. And also think about, do I want to skip a night before the next customer stays in that room to lower the strategy? And one of the things we built in is a Legionella check, because you've all been empty, or a lot of rooms have been empty, and Legionella forms in the pipes of the hotel. So you need to make sure that you flush the pipes in the hotel, and you need to have a procedure in place to do these things. So really think about, how often do I want to accommodate customers in the different rooms? Have an allocation strategy where you track this and make sure that you spread out the customers as far as possible from each other throughout the hotel. So I have three great friends who are on the call. So we have Alex, Robert, and Mark. So they've been introduced by Leah, and I'm going to ask them a few questions in the next few minutes. And I'd just love to know more about their concept. But Alex comes from citizenM Hotels, which is the last hotel I stayed at pre-COVID. On the 11th of March, I checked out of the citizenM at Bankside, London. And I've always loved that concept. It's very tech enabled. And I get excited about technology, and they're definitely at the forefront of what the industry is doing. And I think their mission is about transforming customer experiences through technology. So I'm excited to hear from Alex. Robert is from AutoCamp. So cool. If you are Googling anything today, I'd say Google AutoCamp. I think their brand is really exciting. I'm a Dutch person. I've camped all my life. And when I got to a certain age, I'm like, camping is not for me. I need a certain level of luxury. And I think what they've done in AutoCamp is definitely reimagining what that camping experience could be like for a luxury experience. It is very, very cool. And Mark Strijk, as I grew up in Holland, I used to drive past, when I was a very young boy, the Postillion Hotels. So in my life, you've been a big brand throughout that's been making me want to become a hotelier. So I'm excited to have you on the call as well. And to learn from you what you've done post this, or as we working towards the post-COVID environment. So my first question is, could you just introduce yourselves and tell me what makes your properties unique? What makes your brand effectively? And we're going to start with Alex, and then Robert, and then Mark.
Yeah, of course. Hello, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity and the chance of being here today. Really appreciate it. I think many people know citizenM, and thanks, Matt, for being a fan of the brand. And for those who don't know us, citizenM has started 12 years ago in Amsterdam. We now have 20 hotels across the world. We are one of those crazy hotel company that opened the hotel 2 weeks ago, and I was in Seattle. We're really happy with that, and a great team around it. Our concept very much could be summarized into words. It's affordable luxury. And this is a sort of value that we always go back to, because we want our guests, mostly business travelers, this is already our market and the target segment that we have, to feel that they have value for money. So we don't do all the fluff, we don't do all the things that a few months ago will be taken as luxury, and it has to be there just because it has to be there. Nobody knows why. So we get rid of those. So very efficient room, very arty, very engaging, very hip in the evening with the bar pumping. And this is a concept that works extremely well because of its efficiency. People who stay with us, they want a quick check-in, a quick checkout. They want the conversation if they want it, and they don't want the conversation, they don't need to have it. And with that, we've been strong going, and we have 23 hotels under construction at the moment, and many of them are still going strong with the COVID. Even if some places have difficulty to get the workers in, this kind of stuff. But by and large, we are steaming ahead, and we'll continue to do so.
And Alex, I think throughout the crisis, you've kept most of the hotels open, unless obviously the government told you to not be open. Has that helped in any way? And how are you seeing occupancy build up at the moment?
Yeah, so that's correct. So we push to keep the hotels open as much as possible. In the UK was a little bit more challenging because of the restriction there, so we had to officially close. But we kept the staff going. So the shift were still happening. We are running on a lean staffing model, and it was very important for us to show that we're here. Doesn't matter what happens, we're here. And it's also a very strong statement towards our colleagues, our employees, our ambassadors on the floor, that they have a job, the job is secure. We didn't lay off a single person throughout the crisis. A lot of hotels companies had to, and we are very fortunate that our position allows us not to do that. And yeah, we had very low occupancy, so some hotels we hit 1%, right, for a few weeks running, and the 1% was probably somebody from us staying there. We start to see a little bit of pickup. It depends, it really depends the area. I think you put it very nicely earlier. I say it depends where your source market is. Now it's very difficult for foreigners to get into the UK, or non-UK resident to get there because of self-quarantine for 2 weeks. Business traveler in the UK, business traveling in the UK is not happening at all. In the US, it's a little bit different. The US has a second crisis on the back of the COVID that is severely affecting New York, for example. But for example, in Boston, we start to see a little bit more pickup because it's a destination on itself for purpose that people around the Boston area will go to the city to go there, so they can go by car and things like that. Anywhere we need to fly, it's more difficult. But there's a little bit of pickup. Cautiously optimistic that this is the end of it. I think it's going to take quite a few months to see a proper recovery, but hopefully we're optimistic again. Maybe that's the message.
Great, thank you, Alex. Robert, on to America. Tell us about your brand.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matt. You know, AutoCamp is an outdoor experience company, and you hit it. I appreciate your marketing tag there. You know, AutoCamp, we really help people connect with the outdoors and each other through design-driven accommodations in nature. You know, we feature iconic Airstreams, which are made here in the United States, luxury tents, and cabins. We try to make outdoor accessible and create those outdoor experiences. One of our taglines is outdoor experiences made easy for those that aren't accustomed to camping or being out in the nature. Our targets include couples, young families, those that are adventure curious, that really need in this particular environment a need to get out and need wide open spaces, and that's what we provide. You know, a lot of our demographic are young professionals, adventurous families, active retirees actually, and we also have a group and an events component as well. AutoCamp is a pretty young company. We have currently 2 locations, Russian River, which is in Sonoma County, just north of San Francisco, and here at Yosemite. I'm in Yosemite today. We're reopening Yosemite today as the national park is open, and we're real excited about that. We're also opening up our first East Coast property in Cape Cod, and that'll open up spring of 2021. And then we have several others in the pipeline, which are in really outstanding outdoor destination locations, which are easily drivable from urban locations. And that's really what we're looking at is you know, the drivability to our locations from these major metropolitan areas. Our guests are pretty wide ranging. We're primarily a leisure outdoor experience company, and we found great success with that. Individuals are looking to reconnect with nature, and by our own DNA, we have social distancing built in. You know, our Airstreams, our tents, our cabins are anywhere between 15 to 30 feet apart. We have wide open acreage where people can roam and experience our site, but also go into various destinations like the Russian River or even Yosemite Park and other destinations. It's a wonderful experience, and it's a pretty young company, as I mentioned, but we're having great success in finding that particular demographic. Reservations have been really outstanding. We've exceeded our bookings from prior year moving forward. We're really excited. Certainly we have local ordinances and state guidelines that we need to follow, and our staff is trained to do so. Our guests are in a demographic that's used to technology, and we find a great acceptance of that through our experience. Yet, while having technology, we don't want to create a social distance. We actually want to create a reconnection at a distance. So there's a little difference in that, and we're excited to bring AutoCamp to more of the United States here and hopefully beyond in the future.
Great, thank you, Robert. How is the situation in Holland? And tell us about your brand.
Yeah, the good thing is, first of all, that we reopened the hotels on May 29. So that's a good thing. Like you introduced Postillion, thank you for having us on the call, Matthijs, as well. You referred to us as one of the break brands in the Netherlands from your when you were a little bit younger and still living in the Netherlands. True, Postillion was one of the biggest brands in the last century in the Netherlands, but it was bought and merged with Mercure Hotels in the 90s. So the brand ended in the 90s of last century. As of 2010, the brand came back as a private equity hotel club. And we started building a new brand, now having 7 locations, only operating in the Netherlands. And we're a very proud group, actually, because we're trying to shake up the hospitality world in the Netherlands a little bit and make them, adapting more a little bit to the future, because we still think it's sometimes quite an old-fashioned industry we live in. So one of the things we do is when it comes to technology, for instance, is we're kind of innovative in technology, but not so much in the front of the house, but more in the back of the house. So it supports us to really re-establish good connections with our guest and customer. And what sets us apart as brand, probably from many others, is our first primary target market is actually the MICE market, the meetings and conventions market. And so for us in our proposition, it really is all about meetings and conferences. And if you want to stay over, then of course, okay, we do have a hotel room for you as well. For many brands, it's the other way around. So first they sell hotel rooms, and oh yeah, if you want to do a meeting, we have some meeting rooms. So that sets us a little bit apart from many other chains and hotels in the Netherlands. And since we live by the creed, attention with impact, so everything we want to do is to create impact with our guest and customer. We try to minimize the taking what we call the hygiene content up front. So everything we could arrange in the back office or pre-arrival, we try to do so as much. And for instance, Muse is one of those parties helping us doing that with the online check-in now. So yeah, that's a little bit about the brand. Like I said, we reopened since May 29. Business is extremely slow still in the Netherlands, especially in cities like Amsterdam. The little bit more leisure locations we have close to water or to the Veluwe, which is a national park, they're doing okay, especially in the weekend. They're picking up business, but we're still figuring out what is the new standard of a good pickup. Because the pickup, I'm happy now with 30 rooms pickup on an average day, and pre-COVID that will be a terrible day in pickup.
I know the feeling. Like we see across Muse hotels currently, like there's an average occupancy around the world of around 13%.
Yeah.
And that excites me. And that is very sad, unfortunately,
Yeah,
but it is the
exactly.
reality. And it
Yeah.
excites me because it's going up. It's going up slowly, but it's going up consistently every single day.
Yeah. It's moving too.
Yeah.
And like one of the things I was looking at today, and so how far in advance are they booking? And if I'd looked at that a few weeks ago, it was about 90 days in advance they're booking. But every day that's getting shorter at the moment. So I'm preparing a chart. I'm going to post on my LinkedIn later. But it's really encouraging to see as Europe opens up and all the borders are opening up, suddenly the lead time is coming down significantly, and hopefully that's going to help all of us here. So we are opening up. Have you taken specific measures to help the social distancing? And what have you done? And what's been the feedback from customers, from guests who have stayed with you, positively and negatively, about what's happened? And maybe let's start with you, Mark.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we did a few things. So. Of course, we have all the signage in the hotel, so we make people aware on every step they set in the front of the house to keep 1.5 meter distance, stand behind lines, one-way directions through the hotel to make sure that we separate it. There is for everybody who enters the hotel, there is a cross check with 5 questions we have to ask them, if they feel healthy and etc. The hygiene stations throughout your whole hotel, so people can disinfect their hands and clean it. And so all these measures are taken there, and we got this protocol for both meeting guests as hotel guests. Which is sent to them up front to make them aware of, okay, these are the measures we took and what you have to do. And especially what we do for the meeting guests next to it is we send what we call, we borrow that from the airlines. We send a boarding pass, and the boarding pass clearly states which entrance of the hotel you have to use, where you have to park on the parking spot, which toilet group is assigned to your specific group, or which meeting room you have to go to. And we send them to that 24 hours up front to minimize the amount of movement to the hotel and to make sure that we keep these groups separated. And so far, it's only since 2 weeks now, but the feedback on that is actually very good and very great. What we also did concerning to more the meetings industry, we organized Next MICE as the first conference in the Netherlands on June 2nd already, with only 44 times 30 people, so small conference. What we have to do as meetings industry, to get the business back. And there is a lot has been said about gaining trust. We have to make sure and communicate to our guests that we can do and organize and host safe meetings, and that we make people aware, but we also have to gather data on that so we can show it to the government that we are a safe industry to host groups. So trust and proof that trust is one of the biggest topics we look at the moment.
And I love how you're very vocal online, promoting these new solutions and educating hoteliers. And I really love you're out there. And you're not just out there talking about your own brand, you're just talking about how you're tackling it. And I've watched several of your videos and I thought they were really great. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Robert,
tell us about what does an experience look like if your social distancing is already built in? What have you done additionally to your experience?
Matt, we really, when this all started, we really had to take a step back with AutoCamp. We had a very well-defined guest journey, and we were continuing to define that guest journey. When the COVID-19 came about, we had to take a step back and looked at every touch point in the guest journey, everything from the booking to the pre-arrival to everything that you had mentioned during that guest journey. And so we're very much aligned with that. And looking at the various touch points and where we can use technology or automation or replace those experiences and then enhance those experiences in terms of cleanliness and guest contact was a real desire. So we established a small group within our company to really look at that guest journey and redefine it. Everything from what you had just mentioned, and creating some new tools and new messaging. We have a great social media platform with our marketing team that really captivates our audience and creates this yearning to be in the great outdoors and be with AutoCamp. We have huge number of followers on our social media. Some of the things that we did, obviously we need to follow the state and local guidelines here in the United States, and they seem to vary on a weekly basis and almost every other day in some cases. And then we looked at creating that contactless experience that you'd mentioned. That mobile piece was extremely important, that we had not used in the past. And we decided that was going to be one of the key touch points, is that mobile check-in as well as check-out. But we also created some other experiences here. We took a look at what our guests are looking for in that leisure space, and as Mark had stated, as well as Alex, there's a desire to know more about what I'm going to receive and what types of steps that we're taking in our process. So with our marketing team and others, we developed AutoCamp Essentials, which is basically everything you need to know, but maybe we're afraid to ask about AutoCamp and what that looks like in terms of AutoCamp experience. And we have that on our website, but we also push that out in our pre-arrival messaging. And then we created, because the iconic Airstreams are so unique, we created some how-to videos of how to operate, what to do, what to look for, how do you fix things? Because a lot of our customers are do-it-yourselfers. They love the experience and being able to get out camping and being able to do things themselves. And then really leveraging our guest messaging platform, being able to send pre-arrival text messages and those things that we do on a daily basis here during their stay, using that as our primary communication tool, yet keeping that human quality still in effect. And being able to, a lot of what AutoCamp does is programming. We have a lot of great program that we do on a weekly basis, everything from wine tasting to yoga and meditation, and how we could bring that to our customers on a virtual way. So we created virtual programming and activities, and guests can receive a link and they can basically view these experiences online, which was a fantastic opportunity to bring AutoCamp experiences to a greater audience. And lastly, as what was mentioned, Matt, was that food and beverage experience. We created a virtual online shop for our guests to purchase items during their stay, and it can be either ready for pickup or it can be delivered to their suite. However they choose. We find that a lot of our guests are different. There's a lot of different psychographics. So some of our guests are, those individuals that, are those do-it-yourselfers, those adventurous individuals. But there's others that, just want a retreat. They want to be left alone, yet they want to be connected. So being able to harness the power of a virtual online shop and have guests actually purchase items, charge it to their in-room account, and being able to deliver those items to their suite was really something new for us. But we thought that was a great experience and a different experience for our AutoCamp customer. Certainly now we have instituted a lot of enhanced cleaning and safety protocols. You had mentioned, keeping all of our units 24 hours between rentals, and we've put that in place, and that was a high consideration. Right. And then also limiting our occupancy so that there's more space on our site, limiting occupancies, and a lot of that is due to the local ordinances to 50% maximum capacity. I'm happy to say when we opened Russian River, we opened up to our maximum capacity on day one. And we found that the adoption rate of a lot of our technologies, let's say mobile check-in per se, was exceeding nearly 75%. And then and that was last week. And then as we progressed through the week, there were a couple days that we actually had 100% adoption of the mobile check-in. And on several days, we had 100% adoption of the mobile checkout. So guests are using those features, but we also need to take a look at the team member journey as well, and redefining what the team member journey is in terms of their safety precautions and things that we've done to keep our team members safe, in terms of masks and gloves, hand sanitizing stations for our guests as well as team members. And we've moved to a virtual time clock now, and that's one of those things that people touch or use on a daily basis, and going virtual on the time clock has provided a higher level of safety for our team members as well. Limiting capacity in our clubhouse here in Yosemite is 4,000 square feet on 2 levels. We've had to limit capacity, distance furniture. We've had to really establish a lot of signage around the property, and those pre-arrival emails and texts really set the guest expectations. So those are some of the things and the journey that we've gone through. We're just opening up Yosemite today. Had a lot of training earlier this week, and I think we've taken a lot of learning from Russian River and applied it to Yosemite. And as Leah said at the beginning, this may be the new normal. I heard something early on that also cleanliness is the new luxury. So the guest expectations are high in many different ways.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Robert. Alex, citizenM, probably the most forward tech company in terms of the check-in experience, the checkout experience, where social distancing was already somewhat built in. Have you made dramatic changes, or are you operating as usual?
Yeah, we did make some changes, of course, and I think Mark and Robert covered a lot of things that hotels have to deal with. So allow me to zoom out a little bit. 6 months ago, we had an industry that was scattered all around in its offering, in its communication to guests, in gazillions of brands, because everybody thought, okay, we can do something different. We can have a unique feature. We have a lot of choice. And interestingly, now we are forced into a situation where we are all equal in the face of it, is that suddenly there is no more business, and there is this new normal coming. Because if I hear the pickup from my colleagues, it's not here yet, it's coming. We are getting ready for it. And we're all in the same bloodbath in a way. And some of us might actually not make it. That's unfortunate, but if we shave 20–30% of the industry, that's what's going to happen. So we have this paradox a little bit of a scattered industry with a scattered supply chain, with a gazillion of software providers and hospitality solution providers available to us. And yet, the big paradox is we have all of this, and somehow we need to give the same response as an industry. And this is probably what the guests wait the most for us, is that we have a certain consistency across ourselves. Sometimes I say that we wait a little bit for the airlines to fix it. Guess what? The airlines, they're going to fix it globally in one go. All the airlines will do the same new normal. Of course, at the beginning, we'll differentiate a little bit. But as an industry, we don't have that, but we are forced into that. And what's really interesting is we have 2 paths to go, and we have to go to both at the same time. And what I hear from both Robert and Mark is we need to do what's right. We need to communicate, we need to explain, we need to inform, we need to be transparent about a number of things. And this is kind of the box. If you don't tick, forget it. But we're also in need of new guest journey or new customer journey. And we need to build very quickly the next new shiny toy, because otherwise we're going to be stagnating, and we have a sticker say, well, your room is clean. Yeah, not good enough. And how do we do all of those things to create the trust for people to believe they can come back, that it's safe to come back? It's going to be really, really interesting. The worst thing we can do today, and it's great that we have this group, because I think this group is not doing that, but what we cannot do is wait for some unicorn to walk out of the forest with Prince Charming on it and said, here is the solution, because that's not going to happen. All of us need to go in that jungle, fight our way through it, and get to the new normal in a better shape than we were to.
Yeah.
And specific to citizenM, we are forced into a couple of things that we didn't expect. We are forced a little bit to do room service. Not a little bit, we do room service now. And the reason is our space in the airport hotels, especially where the occupancy is still relatively okay. It's not great, but there are people there. Yeah, we change our app a little bit in the rooms and on the iPads to say, hey, you can order your food and somebody will call you whenever it's ready, so that we don't have 20 people in a cramped space at the same time. There are so many other user journeys that, or customer journeys or guest journeys that we can create around that. And as was mentioned, we also investing a lot of thinking, time, and resources into mobility and how we do that. So our kiosk already had online check-in for a long time with kind of boarding pass with a QR code. We had that for 3 years now. And, but we want to go next step. How does that take shape? Yeah, we'll see how that happens, but we have no choice. And as an industry, we need to be very, very honest about it. And I think we are, but it's not only I clean your room, look how good it is. There is a big layer of things that we need to add.
Very well said. Thank you for that, Alex. Like, I think as a tech company and as a hotelier, our industry has been so far behind most other industries. And like, you hear this a lot, that this is a wake-up call for people to innovate. And I truly think it is, but like, I hope it will push us enough to make some of these really difficult, scary decisions to take out antiquated tech, to give customers the right experience. And that's why we invited also 3 tech partners to talk about what you can do in terms of housekeeping innovation, in terms of check-in key innovation, in terms of door lock innovation, because it is scary, and we need to, it really isn't as bad as we all imagine it's going to be to change your technology. But I think the only way to get through that is actually talk to us, and we'll let you know what it works like. So Leah, I'm going to pass the word to you, and take it to the next level.
Thank you, and a welcome to our 3 next speakers. I think the place to get started is first for you guys to introduce yourselves and the mission of your organization. So TJ, why don't we start with you at OpenKey?
I think you're muted, TJ.
There we go.
There we are.
Thank you. I just want to say, thank you for having us. We've been really great friends with Muse. I think we started right about the same time. So Matt and Richard have been good friends for a long time. And I think we share a lot of the same values and views on the space. So OpenKey, we've been just about 6 years, really focused on mobile key, trying to provide an open ecosystem, an open environment to really to create that last leg of the stay. So how do we create a open environment that allows guests to securely get a mobile key that really finishes out that process? We have worked with all the major lock companies for years, and about a year ago we launched a upgrade kit that allows us to very easily and quickly and low cost upgrade really any lock in the last 15 years to digital key. And that was already getting a lot of traction before this, but really it's, that's what we've seen. I know we'll talk about that a little bit more, but our business is up over 200% right now. And I think, it's just hotels really trying to figure out how to help to create, the safest environment. But, as much as we're technologists, I really think that, and my hope is, and my passion has always been, let's not let the technology get in the way, but let's let the hospitality get in the way of the technology, and really trying to change that paradigm a little bit. And, and I think that technology done right can really help to enhance the hospitality experience, and really get away from, I think we're going to a hotel, at least for leisure, to get away from technology sometimes. So we're really just trying to enhance that experience for guests and make it just much safer and much more seamless.
Nice. Thank you for that. Alexander, tell us all about Alice.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having us. I decided to take a vacation with my wife in February for a few weeks, and I asked Richard to look after our industry, and look how badly he's messed that up. So I'm Alex Shashu. For those who don't know me, my father built the Malmaison Hotel brand, so I grew up in the industry. And then I went on to build Alice. Alice is an operations software for hotels that you can use to manage all of your staff. So think your housekeeping, your concierge, your front desk, your maintenance, and then all of your guest communication that sits on top of that. But ultimately, you asked our mission. I think we really exist to enable our hotels to make a far greater impact with a much leaner team, right? So to get a ton done with a skeleton crew. And it's great to see that we had 100 hotel partners open last week, and we've got about another 300 hotels that have indicated that they're opening before July 1st. So I think this is perfectly timed, and looking forward to talk about it.
Great. Thank you for that. Thanks. Michael, tell us about your role and Ariane.
Hi, Leah. I'm really honored to be on this panel, and I love the hashtag #OneHospitality, because it's by standing together that we can conquer the crisis we're in right now. So I'm Michael. I'm the Chief Product Officer of Ariane. I have background from hospitality, so I've been on both sides of the table. We're all about self-service, checking guests in and checking guests out. That's basically all we do. We help with arrival experience and we help departing. We're not a young company. We've been around for 19 years. Starting out, of course, in the kiosk space, but it's been a decade since we took the move to mobile check-ins. A couple of things that makes us different. We have end-to-end control. We build our own hardware and we create our own software, and we connect all of that to our own omni-channel backend to deliver self-service experiences. The other part is we try to achieve full automation. So if you want a swivel chair solution with your arriving guests on one console and you type it on the other hand, we're not the right company to do it with. We deliver full automation so that the staff can do other more important stuff and then interact with the guest in a safe manner. Full automation, self-service, only for hotels. And we've been around for close to 2 decades.
Nice.
Eager to help you out.
Thank you. I think the place to start is really to ask, because you guys are working with some of the biggest names in the industry and you have hundreds of customers between you. What are you seeing in your customer base? What are the trends? And are you seeing potentially some best practices emerging from your customers that you would like to share with this audience? TJ, why don't we go back to you?
Sure. So, we've been working with hotels and really all lodging, short-term rental and hotel for years. But I think that, right now we're seeing this really hyper focus to get technology implemented very, very quickly in the hotels to help make the guest experience better. And as we all know, that can sometimes be challenging with some of the legacy systems. So, we're really just trying to help guide, our hotel partners into trying to quickly, safely implement these tools. We're a complete open ecosystem. So, we love to work with other partners, and we've been integrating partners for years. But I think the thing right now that we're seeing even more is, hotels are wanting to do obviously ID scan and payment verification to do a full mobile check-in, even more than they ever have. We've been working to deliver a mobile key, for years, but that full end-to-end experience is what I think most hotels are trying to get to right now. And it can be challenging if they have some legacy systems that maybe don't integrate well. So, I think that's the most important piece right now that we're trying to help coach our partners on is, let's maybe use this as an opportunity to, advance your back of house. Alice is a great solution there. Ariane is a great, kiosk solution. Muse obviously has been a great partner, but we're trying to integrate all these partners just to make the experience much easier for hotels.
Well, sure, because of course, if you're hitting on very rapid tech projects happening all at once, you're hitting, the trifecta of people, process, and tech all, and legacy systems. So, to have these things come in rapidly now because people are responding to the industry changing means that it's going to take a big team effort to get everyone up to speed so rapidly.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest challenge is there's been so much unfortunate cuts in our space. A lot of our bigger brands, our brand customers have just, there's been so many cuts that, our customers and the people we work with are having to do, twice as much work as they had to before. So as much as we can, we're just trying to, help them to make their job a little bit easier right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Alexander, what are you seeing from your customers? You alluded to, you've got waves of reopenings happening.
Yeah, it's incredible. So we spent 3 months almost working with our hotels in the shutdown, putting out this free COVID checklist project and helping them figure out how they're going to manage all these new SOPs, all of their new contact lists. I mean, I have hotels that are doing their employee stand-up meetings digitally now using Alice. They're sending out health waivers to guests via text. They're making them book the pool reservations over text, and that's helping them with efficiency. And we've done all of that. And then obviously we have a maintenance solution, so everyone's doing their deep cleaning pre-opening on Alice, which is kind of how we get visibility into opening. We put out an ebook on all that, and it's fantastic. But actually, I think the most interesting call I've ever had was one yesterday or 3 days ago, really, with a hotel group that basically thinks all the big brands have got it completely wrong and not by a fault of their own. We've spent so much time figuring out how to put PP&E and all of these measures in place for guests. And then because this first wave of guests are these domestic leisure travelers who are kind of escaping the pandemic, what they've noticed is the guests have absolutely no interest in it. What they're asking is, what is open? Where can I go? What of your facilities are open? And it's like completely back to normal in terms of their mindset. And so now we're on the phone with all our concierge saying, you need to encourage your hotel to bring you back. And you need to start calling every single vendor in the local area and mapping out who's open, what their menus are, what your guests can do. Because that first wave, kind of as you're seeing from like the AutoCamp side of it in the earlier call, is that leisure traveler who's looking to escape. And it's not that the PP&E is needed. It absolutely is critical. It's like that's the baseline now. But that's ultimately not really what the guests at this stage we think are looking for most of the hotels that are opening and full to 50% right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because you are not the first person we're hearing this from, which is the first wave is actually the bold traveler who's been pent up at home.
Yeah, or the fed up traveler.
The second I can get out of this house, I'm going to get out of this house.
But that's the beauty. It's going to go back to just being a hotel. So it's like we had conversations of how do you change your bed sheets to be the safest, and we were saying like really actually I just want the softest bed sheets when all is said and done. And so you take on these expenses right now and it's important, but ultimately I think you have to look 2 years out and say, how do I run a profitable hotel? And right now it's really difficult because you have less staff, you have less guests than you're allowed to, your restaurants are at 50%. And so right now it's really about just how do you run a skeleton crew and try to just get back to normal, almost using technology to help bridge those efficiencies that really humans can't.
Yeah, great. And Michael, what are you seeing from the customers of Ariane?
I mean, I'd like to tap into what TJ was talking about, but what they're asking is touch-free guest journeys and safe guest journeys, and of course, staff cost-saving solutions, because we're facing the problem of, low revenue. But what TJ was saying was really keeping your mind open for compromise and keeping it simple. There's an inherent, complexity in doing integrations across multiple systems, and of course that's what we do. Then there are some barriers that are hard to break, and often we've been so obsessed with could be look and feel or brand standards and other things that don't really feel a function for the guest or the arrival process, but have been there, and we have never questioned why we're doing this or that. So I would say this is an opportunity to review how you're processing your arriving and departing guest and simplify the process and do what really brings safety to the journey, reassurance to the guest during the process, and also, of course, can help reduce cost. And obviously, we think adding automated self-service to the mix is a great enabler. And we also know that that can save, well, if you invest $1 in it, you can save 6. So of course there is some revenue or cost savings at the other end too. So, but keeping it simple and be open for compromise so that we can deploy fast. That's the main advice we're giving right now.
Well, and that ties in really nicely to the next question that I have, which is, you know, we've got a lot of participants today and who will be listening to the recording who maybe potentially haven't been so rapid to adapt some of the technologies that you have. And, you know, knowing the pressure of the immediacy of the situation, what, in terms of contact-free solutions, do you propose to get started quickly? And where do you think, you know, some of those early wins could be? And maybe I'll mix this up and say, Alexander, why don't we start with you, and then I'll go to Michael and then TJ. Where are some of the wins that they can have, or where are the early starting points?
Yeah, well, on that, to kind of add on to what the other two have said is, and actually TJ put out a report on this about a year ago. There's like, I remember an OpenKey, and I sent it last week, that hotels are not meeting guest desire for mobile solutions. And so this is, we'll remind everyone, this is not new or really innovative or even emergency correction. Our industry is kind of in some ways just being woken up to something that they should have done years ago. And it's long overdue, that the vast majority of customers have wanted for more than 5 years, which is the convenience or service controlled from your own iPhone the minute you turn your iPhone on. So, you know, we're seeing a huge wave of demand towards apps, towards messaging, towards keyless, kind of just mapping out the entire journey. Kind of as the other two were saying, I think the keyless side takes a bit longer because you have to set it up. But I think now we'll start seeing much bigger demand for it forever. You know, this will kind of change how we adopt hotels forever. What hotels can do immediately is messaging. Messaging you can put in place in an hour. Okay, you have to sign a contract, but within an hour you can have messaging up, because messaging is there's a lot of providers. Alice is just one of them that do it. They will do it very similarly, and you can start engaging your guests immediately and do that as you start building in what is your app strategy, what is your keyless strategy if you don't have it in place, and how are you going to make the more long-term investments that I think everyone has now realized, and this has been a kickstart for, that our industry is just far behind other industries on.
Nice. Michael, where do you think some of the logical getting started places are?
I mean, we were fortunate. Self-service is kind of a good solution to begin with, but on the tune of keeping it simple, to start, of course, with the mobile pre-arrival journey and the checkout. Both of them can be delivered and set up without complicated hardware integrations and delivery times and on-site visits. That's a good start. And of course, don't overcomplicate it. Don't force the guests to follow a very specific path. Give them a choice, this or that. For instance, do a mobile check-in, and you can pick up your key, okay, optimally on a key card dispenser from us. Scanning QR code, you have your key, or have a mobile key delivered by OpenKey or someone else. But you can make it simpler. If many of our customers have manual door locks, we can drop those in a kiosk. Others are comfortable making pre-arrival packages, including your room key with a room number. Okay, let's deliver a message, pick up key number 402, have staff available to control the distribution of keys. Yeah. But wow, you've achieved a contactless arrival process without overcomplicated and making it a long delivery and development project. So keep it simple, improve over time, be very ask questions why you're doing every single step of the guest journey, and see that it taps into staff savings, increase safety for staff and guests, and giving reassurance.
Nice. It's great to hear, because when you say it in this way, you know, it is achievable. Like it's logical and achievable, and in many ways, to your point, Alexander, extremely surprising that it hasn't been done sooner, because you're right, consumer expectations are already there. You know, it's it's quite frankly many of the processes that we apply to any other number of experiences that we have. TJ, what about from you?
Yeah, I think, and this isn't necessarily an OpenKey thing, but I think the one thing that we're learning is things are changing so fast. If you look at, and if you maybe talk to guests back in April or May, they probably would have said something very different. And I think, what we're learning is with things changing so fast, almost week to week, guest sentiment, safety, I would just be communicating with guests as much as possible, capturing that data, and kind of adapting your experience for the guests for the changing times. Because, I think there might be, guests are feeling safer this week and maybe they're focused on different things, but things might change in a couple weeks. So I think you have to just be very, very nimble right now. For us, we're seeing, it's an interesting paradox. We're seeing, our hotels all want to go keyless and create a very simple contact-free solution as fast as possible. But, with no or little revenue and occupancy, CapEx has been, a huge concern for, our hotel partners. So, as part of this, we launched an upgrade kit that's $49 US. That's self-installed by the hotels, that they literally just can plug it into the lock to make it mobile key. It's cloud-based and it can kind of get up and running quickly. So I think that's the biggest consideration we're seeing is the CapEx for hotels, speed, trying to get something in place, but also, just trying to be nimble and trying to listen to customers as we go and just trying to be empathetic to our employees at the hotel and to guests, and just try to meet. I mean, we are, most guests have been stuck at home for months, and we're that amazing reprieve right now. Travel has always been that, but those that are able to travel, and I think travel will come back roaring because we're all sick of being stuck at home. So I'm hopeful for the future, but it's certainly going to be a long road to get back to where we were.
And undeniably, and I think to your point, this is our third event. Each of the topics has been incredibly different because we're responding to the uniqueness of the phases that we're in. And within 8 weeks, there'll be a whole other set of topics that we need to cover because this is moving so fast. So it's a really great point. I can see that there's a number of questions coming in through Slido, so we want to make sure that we get to them. I do want to just give each of our speakers the opportunity to sort of give one takeaway to this audience, if we could, if you had to leave everybody with one nugget that's top of mind for you right now. And we've covered, it could be reiterating a few points or agreeing on some things, but why don't we start with Alex from citizenM? What's the one takeaway that you're thinking of right now for this audience?
Yeah, so really the idea of being relentless about thinking and doing what's needed to facilitate attractivity of travel, to facilitate operation, to facilitate retention of our colleagues, our staff, and really not stopping at, okay, we've changed housekeeping, for example, and that's good. Really always keep pushing the envelope and saying, okay, it's not good enough. And maybe it's never going to be ever good enough. But it's by trying that we progress, and not trying is really the one thing to stay away from.
Nice.
Alexander, I think your house is on fire. I'm looking behind you, and I'm like, oh my god, I need to tell him.
I'm okay. I'm just in Colorado. There's some steam behind me.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Well, that's good.
Maybe before his house burns down, I'm going to go, Alexander, why don't you give us your one takeaway before the house goes?
I think everyone said it. It's kind of start simple, right? Like I sat with a hotelier the other week and we were like, your room service menu's changing, your F&B is changing. Just write it into a Google Doc, make that Google Doc view only and message it out. Message out your COVID safety standards so your guests understand it. And that way, as they change, you just change with the Google Doc. It's really like start with the really simple things that are going to make a big difference on a very small level, and then will be very easy to change as it changes for you, as everyone's saying it's changing every week.
Great, thanks. Stay safe over there. How about Mark from Postillion?
Yeah, besides what has been said already, there's one thing we learned, and that is we have to go up as industry and also with our suppliers to make sure that travel will be safe again. Because we can do that as hoteliers, but if other suppliers around us are not coping with us in spreading that message, we're still lonely at the top of the mountain, and that would not help. So we really have to do it as an industry all together, and make sure that people start trusting, to travel again and stay in hotels and in other places as well.
That's so well said, really, very well said. Robert?
Thanks, Leah. For me, it's about how do we leverage high tech to still be high touch? That's an important part of that guest journey, I think, and being able to understand our guest profiles, who we're talking to, who's our customers, who's our demographic, how do we message those individuals specifically to create especially in the leisure segment, how do we customize the guest experience that's safe, that really speaks to what that guest is trying to do. If they're trying to get away, if they're trying to be safe, if they're just looking for a great outdoor experience, what are they actually trying to achieve? And leveraging that technology while still keeping a high touch factor. I think that's important in our hospitality experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that marriage of the technology to make the experience better, not more technical. And TJ, how about from you?
I think, I agree with Robert a lot. It's, how do we create that, high touch and without, as well as staying safe. I think, we're a hospitality industry, and the technology should just be enabling that. And, I think it's a huge challenge right now for hotels, because, we want to show safety, but in order to do that, it's a huge challenge. I mean, you walk into a hotel and everyone's wearing masks, and there's new signage. It can feel very stressful to do that. And I think technology can help to alleviate some of that if you can get them to their room as fast as possible and communicate a lot of that stuff ahead of time. You can go to ease some of that stress. But my heart goes out to the hotels. I mean, having to balance that and still trying to create a home, loving environment, if you will, that feels safe. But yet, you have to implement all these additional measures is a huge challenge. And so my hope is that, technology just goes to try to make that a better experience for guests.
Great. That's a great message. And last but not least, Michael. Thank you.
I was going to say a lot about, automation. Stealing yours is the great enabler of it's an enabler of great guest experiences. But I want to change the tune. It's really, again, back to your hashtag #OneHospitality. And we're now implementing a multitude of new arrival and departure processes. We're inventing new terminology. We're inventing new technology. And we're expecting the guests to learn and use these systems. And I think we have a great opportunity as an industry to collaborate across companies, vendors and customers alike, to try to bring some conformity and predictability to the guest journey. We don't even call check-in everywhere. Somewhere it's registration, and it's confusing for our guests. So let's use this. Okay, self-service is now in the nice room. It's acceptable. You can bring great guest experiences, but let's not invent a totally new, unpredictable guest journey. I think we can, after this webinar, work together to achieve that.
The language is so important, especially for an industry that is so global. The language and the expectations are very, very much aligned, and what words we choose for each one of these steps.
And symbology as well.
Absolutely.
Speaks many languages.
And it would also definitely help, you know, if the governments choose also one rule of measures, because you know, cross the border even within 10 meters, and the rules are totally different than in your own country, which is really confusing for travelers in the end as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We were having that conversation in the context of citizenM being opened everywhere, but the UK, where I'm sitting in London, and they have been so unclear throughout the entire process, and it makes it, for businesses and travelers, it makes it very hard to know what to do. We have a lot of people who are staying through because they definitely want to have some questions answered. So why don't we head to the Slido? Matt, are you?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm here. And I love this saying of the only one who wins out of this are the dogs. And I just see my little dog lying there, and she's been on all fours throughout this. She's just loving these webinars that I'm doing with me around. So the first question is a really good one, because obviously hotels are pretty much empty as they start to reopen. So how can you open a hotel even at 30% or even less, and achieve profitability break-even point? All you need to do is take on more debt and long-term impede your own growth. So I'm looking at the hoteliers on the call, and I guess specifically to citizenM and Postillion, who've been most hit because they're hotels that have been targeting business travelers or city center locations. How do you feel about this?
Well, yeah. Making a hotel profitable at 30% occupancy, you can't. You know, that's the first thing. In the end, this period is not helping us in gaining any positive results. On the other hand, you know, as a hotelier, I have fixed expenses anyway. You know, some properties we have to pay some rent. I still have staff. I have to pay for my utilities. So any income would already help a little bit, you know, in covering those costs. That's one. But most importantly, and that's what we said as well, we have to establish trust again also for our customers, and we have to build that confidence that we can safely organize travel together. And that has a cost as well. But if the 30% occupancy stays for, I don't know, 6 more months or a year, it will be, I think you said it, Alex, will be a bloodbath in the industry. And a lot of companies, you know, will fall.
Thank you.
Maybe I can add to that, yeah, because something I didn't mention that makes citizenM a little bit unique, and that we very often overlook, because we are talking a lot about operations, about operators, but essentially the hospitality industry relies a lot on a real estate, or piece of assets that is fixed. And very often the operator and the owner are different entities with different interests, different views on things. And for us, of course, I fully agree with Mark, there is no way making a hotel profitable when the occupancy is not there. Simply fixed costs, utilities, things that are going around in the hotel, even if it's closed or empty, need to be paid. But what's important is, depending on the ownership structure behind, and for citizenM, and this is why it's a bit unique, is we own all of the real estate. There's a few exceptions to that, but we pretty much invest our own real estate. That's why we took 13 years to build 20 hotels, not anything else. And it puts us in a position where we can go to our shareholders and say, guys, this is the situation, right? And the shareholder, we have fantastic shareholders, and they can tell us, well, citizenM is important for our portfolio, so we'll help. And that's a tremendous advantage, because we don't necessarily have to kill 100% of the capex. We don't have to lay off people. What we have to do very well is manage cash flow. Company breaks on cash flow. They don't break on not being profitable. Amazon was not profitable for 25 years. Tesla never turned out a profit. And they're still around, and they're still growing, right? So I think this is a great question, because it allows to highlight a little bit the structure behind the hotel that very often we forget. But I'm pretty sure that on the supply side, be it Muse or OpenKey, you guys know that very well, because very often you have to convince the owner to invest capex. And And so that's a great question. Whoever asked it, anonymous, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but thank you, because it's really interesting.
I agree.
A really interesting topic
like
in itself.
Very well
It's been
said.
such a lesson. Yeah, it's been such a big lesson that cash is king for everyone, I guess. Beyond, like, a fancy P&L is nice, but that doesn't pay the bills. And cash flow is absolutely king at this time.
True.
If I could add to that, also, working with our investors and our equity partners, and really letting them know our forecast up front and what those expenses will be, those additional expenses that we're looking to spend in terms of our enhanced cleaning and safety protocols, and then also reaching out to our vendors and looking for some relief in terms of being able to reduce some costs during this particular transition time. We know this is not going to last forever. We don't know exactly, and we don't have a visibility of what that's going to look like in the future, but really reaching out to our partners and really asking them same questions as we're talking about today, and how they can provide us some relief. Profitability, looking at break-even analysis, looking at budget forecast, reforecast, and building in those costs to be very transparent with all of our investors and equity partners.
Thank you, Robert. So the next question, I love how it can go from the one polar opposite of budgets to the next one, which is tech innovation on doors. Doors have been one of the banes of our life. It's been, the innovation there has been the slowest, as in anything else in our industry, I think. So there's a great question here about Apple and NFC and Apple Wallet. And could it be a game changer for mobile keys, as it can work with RFID locks and no apps are required to be downloaded by customers? I guess, TJ, like that's yours.
Yeah, so I think I would have thought that Apple might have opened up more of the Apple Wallet for third parties a long time ago. The Apple Wallet's been out for a long time. My perspective is you have to just kind of work in today's environment. Waiting for Apple to open something, you could wait a long time. So I think you have to work with technologies that work today. There may not be the absolute perfect and easy way to deliver it, or to receive that, but what we care about most is guest security and and ease of use. There's solutions that work today. The other challenge is, I think as hoteliers, we don't want to have to spend a lot of time trying to explain different experiences for Android or iPhone or this phone. Oh, which model do you have? This doesn't work, or this does work. So I think you just have to build, the most ubiquitous, easy, secure solution. Today, Apple has it locked down. What does the future look like? I don't know, but it could be another 10 years. I don't know. So I think you just have to build for today. There's solutions that work, that are low cost, that work. It just, I think things will always change, but I think you have to live and work for today.
Could I respond to that, because I disagree a little bit. and I think we as an industry, or at least us as a company, let me start with that. As a company, we'd love a good kerfuffle with Apple, where we have a real debate about what is open, what is not open. And this is something really difficult to happen just because of the nature of Apple itself. However, if I look at the industry level, and I think of groups like HT&G, for example, and I look at those guys, I'm sorry if anybody from HT&G is in the group, but like, guys, it's up to you to also push for the industry. And that could mean not necessarily issuing standards once in a while, but that could mean being the voice of the hoteliers who actually want technology to evolve, who actually wants to have global partners, be it Apple, Google, Facebook for WhatsApp, for example. It's something that's slowly opening up as well. Where is that voice? It's incredibly difficult for us because we're so scattered. We all love to compete with one another, to speak of one voice in front of a company that is B2C. They don't give a damn about us, right? Their customers, it's not us. However, our customers are shared customers with Apple many times. And for us, it's about 70% of our guests are Apple users. So we really love to see a little bit more of that. I agree that ultimately, TJ, we are stuck with what we have, fine. But I'm more of the opinion and say, well, let's get together and keep trying.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that would be helpful.
Thank you, guys.
So Matt, we're looking at you. I don't know why, but
I can add one thing that's perhaps a lower hanging fruit. We could also challenge the door lock manufacturers to collaborate more, because if they had been more standardized in how the mobile keys are issued and the app that receives the key, we could have seen a lot bigger penetration in the market, and everyone would have benefited.
Yeah.
And also they're being a bit dishonest about the need to have a mobile app and the need to actually check the guest in before you get the key. They forget that in their own sales pitch. So I think it's easier for us as an industry to address, especially the hoteliers on the call, to go to the key vendors and tell them to improve while we're waiting for app.
Like door locks has been truly, like we wrote a blog a few years ago, and door locks is to this day still the article that people have been looking for the most to understand if there is something out there that's really innovative, because it's expensive. Like when you replace an entire door lock, that's an incredible investment that you have to make. And unfortunately, most of the traditional door lock companies, they don't want to cooperate. Then they don't really care, because they're door locks, they put them in and they're in there for 15 years sometimes, and they've made their cost up front. And it's been really hard working with these more traditional door lock companies to get innovation going. So I totally agree that they need to team up and get their act together. The next, moving from door locks to credit cards, I guess this is a question for me. With online check-in and contactless arrival, is there a direction for obtaining credit card authorization without card not present chargeback risk if you don't have a kiosk? So one of the things that hotels do, and none of the hoteliers on this call, because I know how they take credit cards, but the traditional hotel, when they get a non-refundable booking, they go to their payment terminal on a moto and they type in 16 digits to take these payments, which is the card not present that we're talking about. What we introduced, we work with Ariane and with Stripe to actually move those transactions directly to a card, like to an e-commerce platform to charge the cards. And by having done that, we have seen significantly lower chargebacks, but chargebacks, unfortunately, are just a thing that exists, and you cannot avoid them if you haven't seen the customer in person and touched that card on a payment terminal, unless you introduce two-factor authorization, which, it's last year we thought that was all going to get pushed out, and unfortunately it's been pushed back by God knows how many years. Until two-factor authorization is fully implemented across all banks, there will always be chargebacks. But by moving those things from a moto transaction, meaning manual on terminals punching in 16-digit card numbers, to e-commerce, you already see a significant lower. And what's important is that you can win chargebacks. So you can win, as long as you provide the right evidence against it, you can actually win these chargebacks back, because we have seen elevated levels in the recent weeks with COVID happening, where hotels haven't been flexible in the cancellation policy, and then the bank, the customer calls their bank and says, I want to charge back against this. And we've seen elevated levels, but those are now starting to come down as well in the last few weeks. So that really happened as cancellations started to spike and hotels weren't flexible enough that customers were pushing for chargebacks, but they are currently coming down. I don't know if anyone else has an opinion on this topic.
I do, but I spoke a lot, so I don't know if you want to have it, but I'll keep it short, I promise. I think it's such a great topic, because payment is notoriously difficult in our industry. And I think for anybody coming from another industry, it's really baffling why is it so complicated. Why is it so easy with Uber and it's so hard with a hotel, right? That's the first starting point. And maybe the underlying issue is twofold. One is the fact that our business is a little bit more transient. So in Uber, once you've tried it once, you're kind of loyal to it. There is a certain stickiness to it, you go back to it. So you have an incentive to give your credit card details and let them have a token and all of that stuff, right? So, but we don't have that. Even in loyal hotels, you have a lot of guests who stay one time and may never come back. So how do you incentivize in that context is a little bit different. The second fold of that is how much do we know about our guests and the guest profile, and how do we consolidate it in one place where we can render a number of experiences around it. If I think of customer data platform or CRM for B2B, our industry is not doing a really good job. We're pretty crap at it in general. And without, I don't think we can solve without the other. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. And it's, again, a very wide topic, but specifically zooming it back into COVID a little bit, I do think the next normal, or the new normal that's going to emerge, will push for a lot more flexibility. I think the hotels with low occupancy for the next 6, 9, 12 months will have a big incentive to go more flex. And maybe that's going to be not happening. I could be 100% wrong, but that will help a lot to avoid all those chargebacks and a number of things like that. There is no point being not flex if you have 40% occupancy, in my view.
Yep. Thank you for that. Looking at the time, so I'm going to take the last question here, which is about messaging. So it's a good varied amount of questions that we had. Any suggestion for in-house messaging platforms that work well with known apps like WhatsApp and Messenger, so we can communicate with in-house guests? I'm guessing Alex. That sounds like it's a question for you.
Sure, yeah.
The other Alex.
So there are a few. Look for anything. Go to hoteltechreport.com and look for what you're looking for, and you're going to see everyone. I think is a good starting point. And if you're a vendor, beyond that, so that's a good place to start. Two that do cross-functional is like Whistle and Loop. And then obviously Alice has messaging and we'd love to show you it. I think the key to it is two-sided, is being able to message with your guests, but also recognizing that your guests are not messaging you because they're lonely, or for the most part, they're not messaging because they're lonely. It's because they need something. And so our advice is just to make sure it's part of your strategy with work orders. So it's integrated into your work orders. So you're not giving your staff more systems that they need to switch between to execute the job, right? A guest is messaging because they want to opt out of housekeeping. Well, is your messaging along with your housekeeping, say, and this kind of hits the next question, right? Which is, well, then how easy is it for the person receiving the message at the front desk to opt that guest out of housekeeping in the housekeeping software? Do you have to jump in, find a new login, log into a new system you don't use very often and do that? Because then you're building these silos that have always existed, or can it be part of an aligned strategy?
Thank you. Robert, I remember that you mentioned that you have a messaging service integrated. Could you talk about that?
Correct. We're currently utilizing Zingle as our guest messaging platform. Really great response from our guests. Includes a lot of automation for guest requests, simple guest requests, check-in time, other information, checkout, how-tos, various information that we would normally provide on a manual basis or through maybe a telephone call. We find that guest text messaging is a great solution to be able to communicate with our guests the way they wish to be communicated. Because as Alex and Alex actually have said, guests don't necessarily want to learn a new interface or a new device. They want something that's seamless, and we find that the guest text messaging is comfortable for our guests, and being able to action those items and either manually or through AI respond to those guest requests have been a real great learnings that we've had, but also from the guest perspective, very quick, very easy, very comfortable in the way they wish to communicate.
Yeah, so we're seeing lots of new automation where hotels are sending out their safety policies the day you arrive, right? And that can all be automated, so your front desk doesn't have to do it.
Correct.
Yeah, so I would say you want to make sure that it's integrated with your PMS in the deepest way possible, so that you don't have to have separate platforms. If you go to news.com, we have our marketplace, and you can find a bunch of these partners that we work with in terms of messaging. But you want to make sure that you get it end to end, right? Because how do you invite customers? So how do you get the contact data from the PMS into these messaging services to actually start the communication flow there? So you do want to not do it like a half solution. You want to really get this right. But there are solutions, and you can get them switched on very quickly.
Yeah, and they're not expensive. They're about $100 a month on average.
Yeah. There's a question there in the chat. As waiting for Muse internal messaging. We have messaging built in. It's built into the online check-in and online checkout. So you can add these chat buttons to your emails. So any email communication that goes out, there's a chat with us button that you can incorporate into your emails, and then you can start to chat with the reception, and that is built natively into the PMS. Rounding up the conversation, thank you, everyone. Like I really enjoyed everything everyone has said. Like we have to be incredibly agile as we come out of this crisis. Like it's unprecedented to have most hotels run really low occupancies, and it just requires a different mindset to tackle it. From the people joining, it's great to see that there's hundreds of hoteliers who need our advice. I follow all of you on LinkedIn. Thank you for keeping us updated there with what's happening in your businesses. I find LinkedIn a great source, and it's actually a very positive platform. Wherever else I look, CNN or whatever news platform I look, it's all negative. But I find that LinkedIn has really turned a very positive corner where businesses are sharing positive news and positive updates about our industry opening up. So I'd say definitely follow all of these gentlemen on the call here today. We have taken a full recording, so we're going to be sharing that with anyone who is registered. So you're going to get that in your email box so that you can share it with your teams afterwards. There are a bunch more questions on Slido. So we have a content writer that takes those questions and often turns them into blogs, so we actually answer the questions. But also, I think we will definitely have another webinar in a few weeks, because right now it's the hotels opening up, and then what's the new normal after they've opened up to become profitable again. I think that's definitely a big topic that we should be talking about going forward. Thank you to everyone who joined. Thank you to all the speakers, and I'm excited to see you all back in a few weeks' time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.